Manic's the name and speed's my game, and we're back with another power snuff. The final, I think this is the final part. Like I said, Norman said she ain't gonna probably do no more Powerpuff Girls related content. She wanted to do this because she remembered this fanfic of her childhood. You already know how it is. If y'all like this, make sure y'all subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make Powerpuff Girls content. I'm not gonna really put a lot of evidence. You know, we're watching something serious a little. So let's get into it. Like I said, listen. Warning, this video has graphic violence against children and animals. Like, watch at your own risk. So listen, if y'all don't want to watch this, get away from here. Listen, I ain't trying to ruin y'all childhoods or anything. So, let me know. Let me check. Yo, can y'all hear it? Can y'all hear it?
Blossom and Buttercup awoke to see Bubbles sitting outside of the box, drawing in the dirt with a stick. Buttercup approached her, and was heartbroken to see that she was drawing the professor, who was smiling contently. She swallowed hard, turning away.
Okay, we need to think of a way to get home without being seen,
said Blossom, sounding much more like her old self.
We could dash from cloud to cloud,
suggested Buttercup, pointing to the sky. It was a beautiful blue, but scattered here and there were fluffy white clouds floating without a care in the world.
We're going to get soaked,
said Blossom.
But that's a good plan.
Problem,
Bubbles muttered, not looking up from her doodle.
How do we get out of Townsville when our powers are gone? We won't be able to fly.
Oh yeah,
said Blossom.
Maybe we can take the stuffing out of one of your larger stuffed animals and pretend to be a dog or something.
Brilliant, Buttercup grunted sarcastically.
If you have any better ideas, I'd love to hear them,
Blossom snapped, but Buttercup simply shook her head. Without another word between the three of them, they shot straight upward and hid in the nearest cloud. Just like Blossom had said, they were soaked in seconds, but they didn't care. Before shooting to the next cloud, they'd peek out at the city to see if anyone was looking up at all. They were lucky to not have been spotted once the clouds became more spaced out the closer they got to their house.
Which is crazy.
Finally, the girls made it, entering their home.
It's off topic, but it's kind of on topic. They didn't murk the Amoeba Boys or Sedusa. Or probably Sedusa and the Amoeba Boys wasn't in town, or probably heard what was going on and just decided to hide. Be honest, they really couldn't murder the Amoeba Boys. They're germs. Like, this is a whole topic I really could make about the Amoeba Boys, because if they weren't dumb, the Amoeba Boys could really be a threat to the Powerpuff Girls in Townsville. If y'all watched that one episode where the girls got sick. Just saying.
Home for the first time in what felt like years. Bubbles spotted Octi still sitting on the couch, and she grabbed him, hugging him tight. Blossom wasted no time, gesturing for her sisters to follow her into the lab. There was still a huge scorch mark on the tile from when her and Buttercup incinerated the professor's body. They each sifted through cabinets to look for the chemical, hoping against hope that the professor had some stored somewhere.
Aha!
said Buttercup. The other two flew to her side and spotted a bottle of chemical.
If y'all know me, if y'all know, be part of my community, I do be talking about a lot of Antidote X and always in my Powerpuff Girl videos. So, y'all can never forget about it. It was in the movie. Listen, we always talk about Antidote X.
Chemical X sitting on a shelf, and right next to it was the Antidote X.
Hurry! I want this all to end!
Blossom gently took the bottle, popped the cork, and poured a generous amount in her hand, desperately patting it on her face and arms. Bubbles and Buttercup did the same, and once they were done, they all exchanged looks.
Do either of you feel any different?
Blossom asked. Buttercup jumped, trying to take flight, but she couldn't. Bubbles attempted to use heat vision, but nothing happened. Blossom looked at her arms and tried to bring out her blades, but they didn't come. Buttercup fell to her knees and started sobbing hysterically, and her sisters rushed to her side.
It's over!
She wailed.
It's finally over!
Bubbles met Blossom's eyes, and Blossom smiled.
I'm not even gonna lie. That should have been the first thing they should have probably thought of. But I know if they did, this wouldn't have been this in the first place. Probably one of them would have said that. Look, bro, look at Bubbles. Bubbles been through some shit, bro.
However, Bubbles' expression didn't change. No smile, no tears, nothing. She was still numb. It felt odd to walk everywhere as they wandered around the house to pack supplies. If they were going to start over, they needed to at least be prepared. Buttercup even grabbed their camping tent so that they didn't have to sleep in a box again. Once they had everything they needed, the girls realized that there was no way dressing up as an animal was going to work.
The car,
said Blossom.
We can try to drive out of the city.
We don't know how to drive,
Buttercup exclaimed.
Plus, they'll see that it's us in the car.
Maybe we can sneak onto a cargo train,
suggested Bubbles.
Homeless people do it all the time.
It's worth a shot,
said Blossom.
But we still need to get to the train station without being noticed.
We could dress like boys,
said Buttercup.
I mean, we're already filthy and wearing scrappy pants and shirts. All we'd have to do is change our hair and maybe put on hats.
Like the time I pretended to be Boomer,
said Bubbles.
All right, let's do it,
said Blossom. So the girls began to make themselves look as boyish as possible. Blossom pulled her damaged hair into a bun and hid it under a baseball cap. Buttercup put on a gray hoodie, combing her black hair over her face, wearing the hood up, and Bubbles took out her pigtails, capping her head with a black beanie. The three of them also found shirts that were plain and a bit more baggy, and Blossom discovered a bandana she could use to obscure her face, Bubbles doing the same with a light scarf.
I'll say one thing,
said Buttercup with a dry laugh as they all looked at each other.
I wouldn't date a single one of us.
Blossom giggled faintly, but Bubbles seemed to have the inability to feel humored at the joke. Walking to town...
Blossom trying to laugh over here, I don't blame Bubbles for acting like that, right? Especially after everything that happened,
But Bubbles seemed to have the inability to feel humored at the joke. Walking to Townsville train station was surprisingly easy. Carrying their rucksacks on their backs, the girls kept their heads down to avoid meeting anyone's eye. Passers-by tried to avoid the filthy and unkempt little boys. The three of them had to be clever as they snuck around to the cargo section of the train currently waiting at the station as people boarded. They crawled into a car and were small enough to hide behind a large crate that said, "Fragile," in large red letters. None of the girls spoke as they traveled across the country, each of them simply thinking about everything that had happened to them and the possibilities of their future. Blossom's guilt was still eating at her sanity, and she found herself twitching a couple times every hour, and Buttercup was curled up in a ball, hiding her face as she tried to convince herself that they were going to be okay. Bubbles sat on the edge of the car with the door open, dangling her legs freely, watching the scenery fly by. The landscapes were so beautiful and peaceful. After about 12 hours riding the train, the girls finally got off, each of them glad that they didn't need to obscure their faces anymore. They weren't sure where they were, but it was somewhere out in the country, probably in the far northeast.
See, I do like her art style. I just wish, I'm not dissing the art style. I just wish I could kind of see what Bubbles was looking at and where they were at. Or probably the creator could have described it. You know how books be describing everything in every single detail. But I do like the art style that's in a little... It reminds you of a child book. Something you'll read as a kid, What I'm trying to describe. I don't know what I can describe it as, but I hope you get what I mean.
2 hours to find signs of civilization. It was still a nightmare to travel on foot since they couldn't fly. At last, the sisters climbed a hill, finding themselves on a cliff that looked over the nearest town. It was small, but was bustling with activity, seeming peaceful enough. The sun started to set, and Blossom forced herself to smile, exhaling heavily.
Well,
she said strongly,
here we are, our new home, and the start of a new life.
Do you think we'll be able to make it?
Asked Buttercup in concern.
I think we will,
Blossom replied.
It's small, no one knows us, we're just 3 little girls looking for a home.
3 little girls that are on the run for murder,
Buttercup murmured.
But no one knows,
said Blossom happily, though her eye twitched. Bubbles noticed this, but didn't react, her expression apathetic.
We'll show everyone how good we are. We'll be kind and helpful, we'll find jobs and somewhere to live. Until that point, we can sleep in the tent.
What about school?
Asked Buttercup.
Not sure,
Blossom admitted.
But I think survival is a bit more important, I hate to say. Maybe there's a library to at least tutor ourselves in our free time.
She turned her back on the town, grinning at her sisters excitedly.
It'll be great! You'll see! Forget all of that stuff back in Townsville. Here we begin our new
Her sentence was cut off by her shrill scream as Bubbles pushed Blossom as hard as she could off the cliff. Buttercup gave a cry of horror as she ran to the edge to watch Blossom plummet to the trees and rocks miles below them. Bubbles joined her, expression still not changing, eyes never leaving her falling sister. There was a soft yet sickening crunch as Blossom hit the rocks, dying upon impact.
Damn, bro.
Buttercup's mouth was gaping, green eyes wide with horror as she was unable to look away from the tiny crimson dot below. She quickly looked at Bubbles, who had opened her bag and pulled out Octi. Without giving the octopus a second glance, she gently tossed it off the cliff to join her dead sister.
Bubbles!
Buttercup squeaked, looking into her blue eyes. She met Buttercup's gaze momentarily, face still showing apathy, and then she silently turned to trudge back down the hill. Buttercup was speechless.
But you also gotta think about it like this, y'all. Bubbles been through so much. And from looking at what Blossom was saying, Bubbles just did that probably because Blossom probably was about to go back to that same person again. Like, there's moments where Blossom did act normal, then there was moments where she was going insane again. So it was a good idea. Like, she had to get rid of her, because if they went to this new town, Blossom would have found a way to do the same thing to these people. Or probably, I don't know, probably she would have found a way to get her powers. I don't know. But she would probably found the same way. Bubbles threw away Octi, because that was her old self. Her, when she was nice, she was giggly, her old self. She's no longer that. Her innocence got taken away from seeing all these people get murked by her own sister. So they went separate ways, bro. They went separate ways, and she's still, like, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Watching Bubbles walk away, and then slowly sat in the grass, looking out at the sunset as tears silently slid down her cheeks. Losing both of her sisters was very painful for Buttercup, but she tried to stay strong, striving to build her new life like they had planned. Upon entering the town, she began asking people if there was somewhere a little girl without a home could turn to. Though it didn't sound very appealing, she was told about a small adoption center and decided that that was the best option. She'd have food, clothes, and a roof over her head, and maybe, just maybe, she'd be taken away by a brand new family. Buttercup decided to go by the name Sarah, after Miss Bellum. Life at the orphanage was surprisingly mellow, and she found herself as content as she could be while the weight of her guilt was still on her shoulders. She made a few friends with whom she played, and was schooled in basic subjects. There was plenty of food, and the environment was comfortable, but Buttercup ended up developing insomnia, going most nights without a wink of sleep. At the age of 9, Buttercup was finally adopted by a wealthy man named Mr. Peters. He lived in the nearest city in a rather large house, but he had no wife or any other kids. He was quite lenient with Buttercup, saying that he wanted her to feel safe for Mr. Peters. He lived in the nearest city in a rather large house, but he had no wife or any other kids. He was quite lenient with Buttercup, saying that he wanted her to feel safe and comfortable, and that she didn't have to refer to him as Dad, but John, as was his first name.
Heck, you can call me Johnny if you want,
he told her, and that's what she started to address him as. Mr. Peters worked in publishing, and was gone for most of the day. Buttercup was assigned a small set of daily chores in exchange for allowance, and was given freedom to do whatever she wanted as long as the chores and her homework were done. Having lost all interest in fighting due to her traumatic past, she decided to take up the guitar. Her songs never had names or lyrics, but losing herself in the instrument became her zen. Growing into her teenage years, Buttercup liked to wander the city with her guitar slung over her shoulder, and find a nice area to just sit and play for people. She even had a sign that said, "No money, please," because all she wanted was to share her music, especially to those who seemed to be having a bad day. Buttercup was pretty as a teen, growing her hair to her shoulders, which she'd pull into a low side ponytail, but kept her bangs long to fall in front of her face, resembling the style she had worn when she had to disguise herself as a boy. She even wore jeans and a hoodie most of the time, but they were still feminine enough for her taste. The past was never brought up to Mr. Peters, her new friends, or anyone else. She never mentioned having sisters, never spoke about parents, and never told how and why she came to the city. Most of all, she never went back to Townsville, and even though Buttercup would never be able to get rid of her guilt and shame, she tried her best to keep herself happy.
Now,
Bubbles had snuck back onto another cargo train, going straight back to Townsville. Upon arrival,
Buttercup, she had a new life. She didn't want to remember what happened to her two sisters. Even though Bubbles and Buttercup just went separate lives while Blossom is dead, which probably is the safest decision Bubbles did, because let's think about it. Blossom would have probably kept doing that until she probably got older. And let's say, what if she kept Blossom alive? She would have kept doing it. Eventually to the point where she probably would have murked her own sisters. Like,
she remained in her disguise until she got to the police station, where she removed her beanie and scarf and turned herself in. Bubbles sat in a cold cell until her court hearing. In front of the judge, citizens of Townsville...
Bro, I keep pausing. It's a reaction video. But, bro, where was the police or the military? They was just chilling until they just saw her, and then, yeah, there she is. Like, I get it. Probably this is Townsville. The cops don't really be on their job. But if we got 3 superheroes are murking people, we need to lock in. How the mayor was in that one episode where he wanted the girls and he thought the girls was up to no good. They was in the school. They put a blicky on a kid. Even Miss Bell had a blicky. Like, I guess because the mayor dead, they said, we don't know what to do. Probably it's a smart decision, but come on. We need to be on that GTA 4, 5, 3 Vice City aggression. Come on.
And the new mayor, Bubbles told the entire story from start to finish. The new powers, the death of Mojo Jojo, Professor Utonium, Fuzzy Lumpkins, etc., as well as the psychotic behavior of Blossom. She told how Buttercup assisted Blossom out of guilt, the constant arguing about coming clean, and how they came to the conclusion that they needed to get rid of their powers. Then Bubbles explained that she herself had never harmed anyone or even touched one of the bodies. She said she was almost positive that Ace and Snake, as well as the Rowdyruff boys, managed to get away and were still alive. Bubbles did admit to accidentally scratching the squirrel when her deadly power finally came, but otherwise did not aid in any of the violence. The last thing Bubbles told them was that she killed Blossom. She explained that she knew Blossom was never going to be the same, and that she ruined both hers and Buttercup's life, as well as many others. Bubbles was sick of Blossom manipulating Buttercup. She didn't want her wreaking any more havoc or hurting anyone else.
Exactly.
When asked about the whereabouts of Buttercup, she truthfully said she had no idea because she hadn't known where the train had taken them. After her entire confession, Bubbles stopped speaking altogether. It seemed that, after getting all of that off of her chest, her mind finally decided to break, and she became mute. The jury was sympathetic, and a majority of the courtroom had started crying during her story. Due to the level of trauma Bubbles had endured, along with the sudden inability to speak, she was declared innocent by reason of insanity, even though her mind was still there. She didn't protest in any way. So Bubbles was admitted to the Children's Hospital, kept in a ward for kids with mild mental disabilities. She still never spoke, and didn't even smile. In fact, the last was admitted to the Children's Hospital, kept in a ward for kids with mild mental disabilities. She still never spoke, and didn't even smile. In fact, the last time she could even remember smiling was before Mojo Jojo's death. Ever since that nightmare had started, her frown never turned upside down. When Bubbles grew a little older, the court decided to put her in a boarding school, but had to explain her situation to the staff, and the fact that she couldn't speak. Bubbles' blonde hair grew long, halfway down her back, and it usually hung in a curtain over one shoulder. She was extremely skinny because of her low appetite, but she did well in her classes despite her pain. The other kids in the boarding school tended to avoid the blonde girl that never spoke or smiled, and Bubbles spent most of her time sitting in a chair in her room, facing the window, but not looking out at the city, instead keeping her head bowed, staring at the floor. The staff were very friendly with Bubbles, being careful not to trigger any sort of panic attack, but that never happened. Bubbles remained expressionless, silent, and did everything she was told. She did, however, keep a little whiteboard that hung around her neck and dry erase marker with her so that she could communicate when she needed. If Bubbles wasn't studying or sulking, she was drawing. The quality of the doodles never changed over the years, simply remaining childish little scribbles. No matter what, though, the drawings always consisted of her sisters, the professor, and all of her friends and foes that had died. They were always smiling. At the age of 15, Bubbles was comfortable enough to leave the school in her free time if she wanted to walk around. Of course, Everyone in the city still knew the former Powerpuff Girl, but hardly anyone acknowledged her out of awkward pity. She watched her feet as she journeyed down the streets, petting a stray dog or cat whenever one passed.
Bubbles?
Said a familiar voice, and she glanced up. She looked into the face of the Gang Green Gang's leader, Ace. He didn't wear sunglasses anymore, and his clothes were much less shabby than they had been when he was 17. His hair was even a bit shorter. Without warning, Ace threw his arms around Bubbles, embracing her so tightly she coughed.
My God, it's great to see you,
he said, his voice expressing strong relief. Bubbles pulled away and wrote on her board quickly. "Where is Snake?" it said.
"He's fine,"
Ace replied, furrowing his brow at the board.
"Why you got that thing?"
She erased the previous sentence and scribbled a new one. "I can't talk." He looked shocked, and his eyes became a bit more glossy. He grabbed her tiny hand gently.
"Come on, come say hi to Snake,"
he urged. Bubbles nodded and followed him through the city.
"He goes by his real name, though. He actually gets very upset if you call him Snake. He stopped using that name after the day that—"
He choked and didn't go on. Surprisingly, the 2 remaining Gang Green Gang members still lived in their old shack, but it had been renovated, now resembling an extremely small and shabby wooden house. Before going inside, Ace led Bubbles around the back and pointed at 3 stones sitting in a row, each with words carved into them. One said, "Little Arturo," the next said, "Grubber," and the final said, "Big Billy."
"When Snake and me came back, which was about a week after that day, we gathered up what was left of them and buried them,"
Ace explained sadly.
"We wanted them to have a proper burial."
Bubbles' lip trembled, staring at the graves.
"Come inside and sit down. Snake will be happy to see you, too."
Upon entering the shack, Snake, who was even thinner than he was when he was a teenager, stood from the table, shocked to see the young lady. He no longer wore a hat, and his clothes consisted of jeans and a simple long-sleeved shirt.
"Is that Bubbles?"
he exclaimed, still drawing out his S's. Ace nodded and gestured for her to sit down. She took her board from around her neck and set it on the table. Snake stared at it, a bit bemused.
"San,"
said Ace, shortening Sanford.
"Bubbles can't talk."
"Oh," said Snake, looking shocked. Bubbles wrote on her board again. "What happened to you?" she asked.
"Well, I'm sure you realize by now that you saved our freaking lives,"
said Ace with a sad chuckle.
"That's how we knew that it wasn't your fault, that you had nothing to do with it. We're so grateful to you."
"We stopped committing crimes after that,"
said Snake.
"After experiencing that entire thing, we wanted no more part in troublemaking."
"The 2 of us ended up hiding out in an alley, a good distance away from this shack,"
Ace continued.
"We built a sort of fort out of boxes to hide in case Blossom and Buttercup decided to come after us. Did they?"
"No," Bubbles replied.
"What were those things they had?"
asked Snake softly. Bubbles sighed. "It's a long story," she wrote, then erased it and continued. "Right after the fighting stopped, it happened to me, too." Next she wrote, "But I didn't use it."
"I knew you wouldn't,"
said Ace with a dismal smile.
"Anyway, we didn't get the news that you 3 disappeared and then you came back a couple days later until like a week. We were hiding, so we didn't see a newspaper until one was thrown in the dumpster in the alley. The entire story was on the front page, and it changed our entire outlook on life. Snake and me—"
"Don't call me that!"
Snake suddenly bellowed, and Bubbles jumped, horrified.
Sorry,
Ace murmured quickly.
"San and me didn't really turn our lives around. We didn't really have the confidence. But, like San said, we stopped the crime and stuff and just try to make it through each day. It's tough. San and me aren't really the working type, so we ain't got jobs. But we're alive."
"Thanks to you."
I mean, y'all could probably find a simple job, like something like at a grocery store or something, be a janitor, I don't know. But, hold on. So, what about the villains that didn't get murked? Like Sedusa and the Amoeba Boys. Did they hear about this? I mean, the Amoeba Boys, they're dumb. They probably, like, just still want to do crimes, and people don't really care, because all the Amoeba Boys would do is probably steal a random stick and be like, "Yeah, now Bubbles will try to stop us." Boys, I don't think... If Sedusa, knowing her, she's probably like, "Nah, bro, I'm gonna go to another city, rizz up some men, get my hair back. The girls, they don't even care about crime fighting. They could. Yeah, let's be honest. Oh, what about what you mean? Like the Snake and Axe could get jobs. You think they get jobs?
Snake said softly. Bubbles turned back to her whiteboard. Blossom is dead. I pushed her off a cliff, she said, and the boys fell silent. She decided to go on. Even after we got rid of our powers, I knew it wasn't over.
I can understand that,
said Ace sadly.
Where's Buttercup?
Asked Snake. I don't know. I left her behind.
Bubbles, we owe you our lives,
Ace said desperately.
I don't even...
What about the kaiju monsters? You know, like Godzilla, like, and all them. Did they hear about this news and just say, because the city still gotta be getting destroyed. I mean, there are other heroes, like the other heroes that didn't really think the girls could handle being part of their team. Probably they can handle the city. Like, or, I don't know, get the Justice League. I mean, the Powerpuff Girls universe exists in DC universe anyway.
You know what we could do to make it up to you?
You don't need to make it up to me. I'm just sorry I couldn't help the others, Bubbles replied.
I know they'd be thankful too,
said Snake, and Bubbles nodded sadly.
But you know, I can't imagine the pain you're in. You were caught in the middle of that whole thing.
Bubbles' throat felt painfully tight, and her eyes fell to the table.
You did the right thing,
Ace assured her.
I know it feels like you should have done more, but there was nothing more you could do. Everything that was within your power, you did right.
You don't happen to know where the Rowdyruff boys are, do you? Asked Bubbles, and Ace blinked.
No,
he replied.
I have no idea where they could be. Why, did something happen to them too?
Bubbles nodded, writing another sentence. They're alive. It wasn't a question.
I'm sure you'll find them,
said Snake. I'm going to go, said Bubbles, and the boys nodded dismally.
It was nice to see you,
Snake said sincerely as they all stood, him and Ace giving her a brief hug.
Stay strong, okay?
Said Ace. Bubbles nodded again and slowly left the shack. Before she walked away, she wandered around to the 3 graves and knelt in front of them. She was sad that she didn't have any flowers to place on them, so instead she took her marker and drew a heart on each stone. Bubbles knew that eventual rain would erase them, but this would suffice until she could bring flowers. With that, Bubbles continued the way she came, going back to the main city. It actually took some time, but Bubbles finally managed to figure out where the Rowdyruff boys were. They were a few miles down the ocean in a little house on a grassy cliff. She had to ride a ferry to get there, and when she arrived, she nervously approached the door, knocking lightly. It was Boomer who opened it, and Bubbles saw that he had a large scar on his cheek. He looked confused for a few seconds, but then gasped loudly.
Bubbles?
He exclaimed in disbelief, and Bubbles nodded. She pointed to the board hanging from her neck, where she had already written, I can't talk. This made Boomer's face fall, and he quickly beckoned her inside. The living room was small and decently cluttered, which made sense because they weren't very organized boys. Butch was on the couch watching television, and Bubbles' heart broke when she saw that he was still missing one of his legs. He sat up quickly when he saw the blonde girl.
That's not,
he said, and Boomer nodded.
Brick, get your ass in here,
he called, and Brick came down the hall and entered the room, but he froze when he saw Bubbles.
Holy shit, dude,
he croaked. It seemed his vocal cords had been damaged. Bubbles remembered Brick getting pierced straight through the chest, and quickly wrote on her board. Are you okay? She asked, and Brick furrowed his brow.
Yeah, are you? What's up with the whiteboard? She can't talk,
Boomer replied, and both of his brothers immediately looked painfully sympathetic. Bubbles shook her board desperately, trying to get an answer from the red-headed boy. Brick pulled up his shirt, exposing an enormous scar, and then turned to reveal a matching one on his back.
I'm alive because of our powers,
he explained.
But I was pretty damn close to dying. Sometimes I have trouble breathing, and if my heart rate increases too much, my chest hurts, and obviously my voice is shot. There was no saving my leg,
Butch added.
But it's not so bad since we can fly.
You still have your powers? Bubbles asked.
Yeah,
Boomer replied.
Why, don't you?
We got rid of ours with the Antidote X so we could stop that ordeal, said Bubbles.
What was that, anyway?
Asked Butch. Bubbles hesitated. She hadn't told the story to Ace and Snake, but she felt the boys deserved to know. "If you get me a pen and paper, I'll explain what I can," she wrote. Brick was the one to oblige, handing Bubbles a pad of lined yellow paper. She tried to write as fast as she could, explaining everything in the least amount of words possible. When she was done, there were quite a few pages, and Boomer read it out loud to his brothers. They were absolutely dumbfounded.
"I don't understand,"
said Brick, sounding almost desperate.
"Why did you girls get bad powers?"
Bubbles blinked and wrote a large question mark on her whiteboard.
"Look,"
said Boomer, and he took out a switchblade from his pocket. Bubbles let out a soundless cry of horror as he slashed the back of his own wrist. However, after setting the blade down, he pressed his other hand to the cut, held it there for a few seconds as it glowed, and then lifted it. The wound was gone, not even leaving a scar.
"The ability just appeared out of nowhere when I was leaning over Brick's injury and trying to figure out what to do. I had set my hands on his chest, and my hands started glowing, and the blood began to stop. I was crazy confused, but went with it. It took about 30 minutes, and I was exhausted when it was done, but I managed to fix most of the damage. Of course, it was bad, so I couldn't heal everything." "We were all sort of freaking out,"
said Butch.
"but we didn't care how the hell it happened, because Brick was alive. Crippled, but alive." "Look who's talking, Gimpy,"
Brick spat, and Butch stuck out his tongue.
"Anyway, a few days later, mine came along. We were flying around to find someplace to live, and luckily we found this stinky old place, and we went in to check it out. We hoped that you girls wouldn't find us here, but Boomer mentioned you telling him to run. When we were discussing it, I went into this wicked trance, and was able to tune into your emotions."
Bubbles' eyes were wide upon hearing this.
"I found out that I could feel anyone's emotions if I thought about them. Blossoms were really disturbing. Anyway, I realized that you hadn't been part of it."
Bro, okay. I'm finding a part I don't like in this story now. I wish Brick would explain what was Blossom feeling. Like, if you could feel people's emotions, then I'm pretty sure Bubbles would have wanted... Well, no, Bubbles probably wouldn't wanted to know. But he would have probably still explained it. Or he would have probably said something. Like, what was Blossom feeling? Like we would have wanted to know that. If you can feel people's emotions, like you can read people's thoughts, we will want to know, even though we kind of can see it, but we will want to know what the hell is going on inside our head. You just said they're pretty disturbing. That's it. Come on, dude.
"Man, after feeling all that shit, we didn't want to get in a fight ever again."
"What about you?" Bubbles asked Butch quickly.
"Mine came the night after the day Brick got his,"
he replied.
"I was sitting on the edge of the cliff, just watching the ocean and massaging my stump. It still ached, even after Boomer healed the skin over. Then my hands started glowing like his had, and the pain went away. I flew back inside and shook the other two awake,
So pretty much you got the same power as Boomer.
Because they had been sleeping. He smacked me over the head,"
Boomer interrupted spitefully.
"Yeah, but then I took the pain away.
Butch pressed on.
Turns out, it's sort of like a painkiller, because the ache in my leg came back hours later. But I soothed it until it went away on its own. I'm able to help Brick with his chest pains when they come."
Bubbles was feeling a bit overwhelmed. "Why did you get helpful powers?" she scribbled.
"I actually thought about that,"
Brick replied.
"and after hearing your side of the story, it kind of confirms my theory. I think there's some weird side effects to Chemical X, one that doesn't kick in for a long time. Now, you Powerpuffs were good X. It kind of confirms I thought about that,"
Brick replied.
"and after hearing your side of the story, it kind of confirms my theory. I think there's some weird side effects to Chemical X, one that doesn't kick in for a long time. Now, you Powerpuffs were good little girls, so the side effect negated the sugar, spice, and everything nice, and you got killer weapons. I think Blossom couldn't mentally handle what she had done, and that's why she went crazy. Expanding on that," continued Boomer, "we were bad little boys, so we got powers that were helpful instead of harmful. It makes me wonder what would have happened to Mojo if he had been alive long enough to get affected. As for why we got the powers the way we did, I think the side effect happened when it was convenient for it, not us," said Butch. "Blossom was fighting Mojo, so it appeared out of nowhere to purposely force her to kill him. Same with Buttercup. She was trying to help Professor Utonium, but instead her blades came out and negated her attempted good deed. As for you, you were lucky the squirrel only got scratched. Yours appeared while you were at peace with your animal friend. Then Boomer's healing power came when he was desperately trying to save me, and saving someone is a good thing,
said Brick.
I was worrying about you after Boomer told me that you warned him, and I never thought I'd be worrying about a sissy little girl, let alone a Powerpuff Girl, so I started to feel your emotions. Butch got his while wishing pain would go away, and we like to cause pain, not help take it away. We pretty much felt sick to our stomachs at the thought of doing something violent, because all we could see were Blossom and Buttercup's horrible blades, and Butch and Brick bleeding to death, Boomer said.
Man,
So we just live normal lives, aside for the fact that we still have powers. We don't want to get rid of them, though, and it seems we don't need to.
Bubbles was fighting the urge to cry, and her hand shook as she wrote on her board. That's not fair, she said.
I agree,
replied Brick sadly.
I mean, we wouldn't want to kill people either, but we'd at least be able to try and keep our heads while trying to fix it. But you girls were so pure.
I want to go home, said Bubbles, and the boys nodded, Boomer taking her hand.
I'll fly you,
he offered, but Bubbles looked terrified. I'm scared of flying now, she told him, but he gave a comforting smile.
It's okay,
he reassured her in a soft, kind voice.
You're in safe hands. If you had told me I'd be saying that 10 years ago, I would have said you were on something.
Brick and Butch laughed as well, but just like Boomer's, it showed no sign of happiness. Boomer gently tugged on Bubbles' hand.
Come on, what do you say? It'll be quicker.
She hesitated for a moment, and then gave a very slow nod.
Alrighty, I'll be back soon, guys. Don't make out,
Butch joked, and Boomer blushed, closing his eyes and growling. He led Bubbles outside, and she hopped up on his back, clinging to his neck as he supported her by locking his own arms under her legs.
Jesus, you're light,
he said before taking flight. Unable to stand being up so high for the first time in a decade, Bubbles rested her head against Boomer's back, shutting her eyes. Little did he know, she had finally started crying. Once in Townsville, Bubbles pointed the directions to the boarding school. He let her off in front of the double doors and gave her a very sad smile.
You'll be okay,
he whispered, and Bubbles' lips quivered.
You know what, sissy little girl? Me and my bros are here for you any time you need us. Hell, you could just leave this freaking school and bunk with us. I know being around a bunch of rowdy boys would
that dude trying to get
probably get on your nerves, but at least you'd have some friends who can relate to you.
Bubbles didn't respond, and Boomer's face fell.
Whatever you choose to do, please smile for me, just once. It doesn't even have to be sometime soon. I just want you to smile for me sometime.
I think I've forgotten how to smile, said Bubbles. This broke Boomer's heart, and he sighed.
We'll keep in touch. Smile for me, just once. It doesn't even have to be sometime soon. I just want you to smile for me sometime.
I think I've forgotten how to smile, said Bubbles. This broke Boomer's heart, and he sighed.
Dude, that's depressing, bro. We always know Bubbles as like the happy one. Like even in the show, Buttercup and Blossom fighting, Bubbles would be like, "Guys, stop it!" It was one episode where it was entirely based on that. But just seeing Bubbles, just like she's to the point where she don't want to talk, bro. Dude, this the part that made me actually cry. We get into the part where I'm about to actually cry.
We'll keep in touch, okay?
He said, and Bubbles nodded. He gave her a hug and then ruffled her hair before taking to the sky again. Bubbles slowly entered the building and went to her room, sitting in her chair and silently crying again. After hearing what the boys had to say, there was now a new thing eating at her heart. What happened to Bullet? The following weekend, Bubbles went out again.
Oh, yeah.
There was now a new thing eating at her heart. What happened to Bullet?
Oh.
The following weekend, Bubbles went out again.
Bullet is from season 4, where it was an injured squirrel, and Bubbles wanted to give it some chemical X to save the bullet. Now there was like this random squirrel that had powers. So y'all know what I'm going at from here, right?
Running to an area of woods she knew Bullet had looked after. She was wondering how she could communicate to the animals, and she decided she'd try to use drawings. Bubbles slowed to a steady walk when she entered the woods, looking around for any animal who might know Bullet. She spotted a raccoon and hurried over to it. She was still good enough with animals that she was able to approach them without scaring them. Bubbles quickly knelt and drew a squirrel on the board, and the raccoon pointed at a random squirrel sitting on a branch. It wasn't Bullet. She bit her lip and drew lines to indicate flying, but the raccoon gave an annoyed chatter to express frustration. Thinking fast, Bubbles erased the squirrel and drew a gun firing, and then drew an arrow pointing at the bullet. The raccoon looked a little frightened, and this surprised Bubbles. It chirped at the squirrel in the tree, and it came down to join the conversation. In a series of rapid chatter, the raccoon told the squirrel who Bubbles was looking for, and the squirrel's behavior became tense. It looked at Bubbles and gave a single chirp, running off. Understanding, she quickly followed it. There was a clearing where many animals were playing, mostly rabbits, squirrels, and mice, and the squirrel Bubbles had followed started explaining the situation. It became so silent, it was as if someone had turned the volume of the woods off. A mouse came up to Bubbles, starting to squeak to tell her the story. Luckily, she could still understand animals. Apparently, Bullet had been trying to fight a badger that was attacking a family of voles, when she suddenly tore through the badger completely. Confused and shocked, Bullet realized that she was covered in red liquid, and coming out of her wrists and ankles were jagged razors. All of the woodland critters were horrified, unsure of what to do. Bullet panicked, acting much differently than she would normally, and many of the animals approached her to try and tell her it was okay. However, Bullet slaughtered anything that came near her, even bugs. Her eyes had been wide and blank, and she was shaking and twitching. Bigger animals began attempting to apprehend her, for now she was labeled as extremely dangerous, but she was too fast and strong. It took a full-grown male bear to finally catch her, because for some reason she seemed to have forgotten how to fly. The bear came out with many cuts and a missing eye, but he was able to stuff the poor deranged squirrel into a large picnic cooler. Of course, the cooler was made out of plastic, so when Bullet started slashing at the inner wall, the animals knew she'd soon escape. They really didn't want to, but they knew they had to put her to death, for there was no helping her. Before Bullet could dig all the way through the plastic, another, much bigger badger got in an attack stance. On the bear's signal, he threw the cooler lid open, and the badger dove in, immediately using his claws and teeth to tear Bullet to shreds. He himself suffered many wounds as the ill squirrel slashed at his face in defense, but he had won the fight. Bullet was dead. Sad and mourning, they gave Bullet a burial. To their horror, she had been dug up a few days later, probably by a hungry wolf. So is the life of the animal kingdom.
Yep.
When the story ended, Bubbles was crying again. Of course Bullet had gotten the bad side effect. After all, she was a squirrel of good deeds. Not only that, she had quickly lost her mind just like Blossom had, but much sooner. Bubbles assumed it was because a squirrel's brain is much smaller than a human's, even a child. She thanked the animals by giving them a firm nod, and walked back into the city.
So, I'll be honest, if this probably happened when they were, more smarter, what's to say if this happened to the Powerpuff Girls, but they're more, with their adults, you think Blossom would have more control. Blossom would have probably turned herself in, and then boom, this wouldn't have been a thing. That's some eerie. This is the moment.
Instead of going back to the school right away, Bubbles journeyed to her childhood home, which had a large condemned sign on the door. Ignoring it, she went inside.
I never went inside an abandoned house. I ain't gonna lie. I wouldn't be surprised if but it is Bubbles. So even if an animal does go in there, they probably would be like, "What's good, Bubbles?" So, but if I went in an abandoned house, I'm cooked, bro. I would be see a homeless person be like, "Spare change, Squidward, spare change." Let me chill.
The house was dark, dusty, and reeked of mold and mildew. There were many rats and cockroaches scuttling around the place, feasting on whatever was left of the food that had been rotting away for 10 years. Bubbles ascended the stairs and entered her bedroom. The sun had soaked up the color from their tricolored blanket, so it was now dull and almost gray. Bubbles sat at the end of the bed, where there was still a large bloodstain, and stared at the hotline, almost expecting it to buzz. The clown face itself looked a little melancholy, and she wondered if it was just a trick of the light. Glancing at the nightstand, she saw a picture frame with her, the professor, and her sisters at the beach, all wearing jubilant smiles. Feeling more alone than ever, Bubbles placed her face in her hands and cried. Boomer had told her he wanted to see her smile, but she truly believed she could no longer perform the action. She had the rest of her life ahead of her, a life of emptiness, existing as a mere shell. And so, that day in Mojo Jojo's lair had not been saved, and no day for the next 10 years had been saved. Not another day will ever be saved by the Powerpuff Girls.
Hold on. Power Snuff fanfic written by Ryan Reynolds. Okay, so Karen Reynolds in 2014. Recorded, done in 2015 by Karen Reynolds. I am not reading that. I ain't gonna lie. If I had enough motion, I would get her on stream to tell her why she make this. Like, I'm not being mean, no. I think she's around 30 now. But I would love to talk to her. Like, what made you... Are you still into this shit? Because I'll be honest with you, I'm not 30s. I'm still going to fuck with Dragon Ball. But, damn. W video. W animation. I fucked with it. I ain't glad that ending had got me. It gets me every single time, bro. Bro, exactly. This, bro. That ending, bro, gets me, bro.
On the bear's brain is stared at the hotline.
Like, W video, though. Yeah, W video. We're going to say W video. Right. It's probably going to be an unedited video, but I appreciate all the support on the channel, y'all. Make sure y'all go subscribe to her. I have the link to her channel in this video as well. Show love to her, bro. I appreciate it, you know, giving us this animation to the community. I ain't gonna lie. I hope we get another one like this, but it's in color. I like her style, though. I still like her style, though. W animation, bro. If I could, I would make one. I'm gonna make my own as well. I would, I'm not yapping, but I appreciate, y'all give me 600 and everything, man. We talk about that in a future video, but we're finna go crazy next year. Eventually, this mirror will be gone. It'll be a PC here. I guarantee you, a PC will be right here. And yeah, like I said, subscribe to the YouTube channel if y'all mess with any Powerpuff Girls content. More content of other fandoms coming soon. Like I said, if you ain't first, then you're last.